What happens when you take the most dominant young superstar in basketball, put him on the biggest stage in European basketball, and then watch as an underdog team completely dismantles not just his game plan, but his entire mental state? Well, buckle up, because what happened between Poland and Slovenia at Eurobasket wasn't just a basketball game. It was a masterclass in psychological warfare that left Luka questioning everything. I'm talking about the game that had basketball fans across Europe scratching their heads, NBA scouts taking notes, and Luka himself walking off the court looking like he'd just been hit by a freight train. This wasn't supposed to happen. Slovenia had Olympic pedigree. Luka was coming off another MVP-caliber NBA season. Poland, they were supposed to be the warm-up act. But sometimes in basketball, the script gets flipped so hard that you can't help but wonder, did we just witness one of the most calculated upsets in recent European basketball history? Or was this just the perfect storm of emotions, physicality, and championship pressure? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how Poland pulled off what many are calling the upset of the tournament. Let's paint the picture of what everyone expected going into this tournament. Slovenia wasn't just another European team hoping to make some noise. They were legitimate contenders, carrying the hopes of an entire nation on their shoulders. And at the center of it all, Luka Doncic, the 24-year-old phenomenon who had just finished another historic NBA season with the Dallas Mavericks. Think about what Luka represents for Slovenia. This is a country with just over 2 million people, smaller than most major American cities. Yet they've produced a player who's already being mentioned in the same breath as Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. The pressure wasn't just about winning games, it was about validating an entire basketball program on the world stage. Slovenia had recent success to build on too. Remember Tokyo 2020? They came within one game of playing for Olympic gold, finishing fourth in a tournament that showcased their potential. Luka was younger then, still learning how to carry a national team. Now, 3 years later, he was supposed to be ready to take that final step. On the other side of the court stood Poland, a team that most casual basketball fans couldn't name 3 players from. They weren't expected to compete with the tournament's elite teams. They certainly weren't expected to contain one of the world's best players. In the pre-tournament discussions, Poland was the kind of team that experts would quickly gloss over when talking about medal contenders. But here's what makes basketball beautiful. On any given night, talent alone isn't enough. Chemistry, preparation, and sheer will to win can level the playing field in ways that look impossible on paper. Poland might not have had the star power, but they had something else brewing. What made this matchup particularly fascinating was the psychological element. Luka was coming into this tournament carrying more than just Slovenia's hopes. He was dealing with the weight of being called the future of basketball, while still trying to prove he could translate his NBA dominance to international success at the highest level. And there was another factor that would prove crucial: Slovenia's recent exhibition loss to Serbia. Getting blown out by your regional rivals in a warm-up game, that's the kind of result that can mess with a team's confidence right before a major tournament. It's like studying for months for the biggest test of your life, then bombing the practice exam the week before. Tournament opening day, sold-out arena, national anthems playing, Luka Doncic walking onto the court knowing that millions of people back home are watching, expecting magic. Poland's players looking across at arguably the best young player in the world, knowing they're massive underdogs, but also knowing they have absolutely nothing to lose. This is where our story really begins, because sometimes the most compelling narratives in sports happen when expectations collide headfirst with reality, and reality refuses to follow the script. From the opening tip, something felt different about this game. Luka started exactly how you'd expect a superstar to start: aggressive, confident, making plays that reminded everyone why he's considered one of the best players on the planet. But Poland wasn't backing down. Here's where the story gets really interesting. Poland didn't come in with some revolutionary defensive scheme drawn up by a basketball genius. They didn't have a secret weapon that nobody had thought of before. What they had was something much simpler and, as it turned out, much more effective. They decided to match Luka's intensity with their own brand of European toughness. European basketball has always been more physical than what we see in the NBA. But what Poland brought to this game was next level. Every time Luka touched the ball, there were bodies flying at him. Every drive to the basket became a collision course. Every rebound turned into a wrestling match. Now, Luka's used to physical play. The guy's been playing professional basketball since he was a teenager in a Spanish league. But what Poland was doing was different. They weren't just playing physical defense. They were playing with an edge that seemed to say, if you want to score on us, you're going to have to earn every single point. The genius of Poland's approach wasn't in the X's and O's, it was in understanding the psychological game. They knew that if they could get Luka frustrated early, that frustration would spread to the rest of his teammates. And man, did they read that situation perfectly. Here's where things started to spiral for Slovenia. Luka, who's never been known for keeping his emotions in check, started getting into it with the officials. Now, we've all seen Luka argue with refs in the NBA. It's practically become part of his signature style. But this was different. This wasn't the controlled frustration of a superstar trying to get calls. This was raw emotion threatening to boil over. Every questionable call became a dramatic protest. Every physical play became fuel for his growing frustration. And Poland, they just kept coming. They weren't backing down, they weren't intimidated, and they certainly weren't going to let Luka's reputation change how they approached the game. Then came the moment that would define the entire game, and possibly Slovenia's entire tournament. Fourth quarter, loose ball on the floor, bodies flying everywhere. Dominik Olejniczak, Poland's big man, and Luka both died for the ball. What happened next was the kind of play that changes everything. The contact was hard, really hard. Luka hit the ground, and when he got up, you could see something had shifted. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. This had become personal. The frustration that had been building all game suddenly had a focal point, and that emotional explosion was exactly what Poland needed to seize control of the game. What's fascinating about this moment is how quickly things unraveled for Slovenia. Sports psychology experts will tell you that emotional contagion is real. When the best player on your team loses his composure, it affects everyone else. And that's exactly what we saw happening in real time. Luka's frustration wasn't just affecting his own play, it was infecting his entire team. Players who should have been focused on making plays were instead getting caught up in the emotional chaos. The cohesion that had carried them to Olympic success was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Poland was feeding off this energy. Every time Luka complained to the refs, you could see Poland's players getting more confident. Every time Slovenia's chemistry broke down, Poland's got stronger. It was like watching a perfectly executed psychological takedown in real time. Now, let's talk about what this actually looked like on the scoreboard, because the numbers tell an incredible story. Luka finished with 34 points, which sounds impressive until you realize how he got them. 7 made field goals and 17 free throws. That's a player who was getting fouled constantly, but couldn't find any rhythm from the field. Think about that for a second. One of the most efficient scorers in the world, a guy who can score from anywhere on the court, was reduced to hunting for fouls just to get his points. That's not the sign of a player in control of the game. That's the sign of a player being pushed completely out of his comfort zone. And while Luka was struggling to find clean looks, Poland was absolutely lighting it up from the field. 58% shooting as a team, against a squad that was supposed to have championship-level defense. That's not just good execution. That's what happens when one team is completely locked in, while the other is falling apart mentally. But here's what made this loss even more devastating for Slovenia. It wasn't just about this one game. This was their tournament opener, the game that sets the tone for everything that follows. When you're a small basketball nation trying to make a statement on the international stage, you can't afford to stumble right out of the gate. The loss to Serbia in the exhibition game was already in the back of everyone's minds. Now, with another disappointing performance to start the actual tournament, you could almost see the confidence draining from the entire Slovenian program. This wasn't just a bad game. This was a potential tournament killer. As the dust settled from this shocking upset, an uncomfortable truth began to emerge for Slovenia. Their problems went much deeper than one bad game or one frustrated superstar. The reality is that Slovenia's basketball infrastructure, despite producing a generational talent like Luka, hasn't kept pace with his development. Look at the supporting cast around Luka compared to what other international powers bring to major tournaments. Spain has decades of basketball excellence and multiple generations of elite players. France has NBA talent up and down their roster. Even smaller basketball nations like Serbia have managed to develop deep, talented squads. Slovenia, they're essentially the Luka Doncic show, with a supporting cast that, while talented, isn't quite at the level needed to compete consistently against the world's best teams. It's like watching a brilliant conductor trying to lead an orchestra that's missing half its instruments. What Poland exposed wasn't just Slovenia's lack of depth. They exposed a fundamental weakness in how Slovenia handles adversity. When things started going wrong, instead of rallying together, they fractured. Instead of supporting their frustrated superstar, they got caught up in his emotional spiral. Championship-level teams have a way of weathering storms together. They have veterans who can calm things down when emotions start running high. They have leaders who can refocus the group when the game plan starts falling apart. Slovenia showed they're still developing that championship mentality. This is especially concerning when you consider that international basketball is all about managing pressure in short tournaments. You don't have 82 games to work through problems like in the NBA. Every game matters enormously, and mental toughness often matters more than pure talent. Meanwhile, we have to give Poland credit for how they handled this opportunity. They could have been intimidated by facing one of the world's best players. They could have played not to lose and hoped for the best. Instead, they imposed their will on the game from the very first possession. What's remarkable is how they managed to stay disciplined, even as the game got chippy. While Slovenia was losing their composure, Poland remained focused on their game plan. When emotions started running high, they channeled that energy into productive aggression rather than letting it derail their performance. Olen Jikak's post-game comments reveal something important about their mentality. They weren't trying to be dirty or start fights, but they also weren't going to be pushed around by reputation or star power. That's the mindset of a team that believes they belong on the same court as anyone. This result sends shockwaves through the entire tournament bracket. Suddenly, every team playing Slovenia knew they had a blueprint for success. Get physical, stay disciplined, and wait for the emotional cracks to show. Every team playing Poland realized they were facing a legitimate threat, not just a stepping stone to the later rounds. For Luka personally, this game became a defining moment. How would he respond to adversity? How would he handle the pressure of carrying his nation's hopes after such a disappointing start? These are the questions that separate good players from great ones and great players from legends. What this game really highlighted is how competitive international basketball has become. The days when one superstar could single-handedly carry a team to a medal are largely over. The level of preparation, coaching, and team chemistry required to succeed at the highest level has never been higher. Poland's performance showed that any team with the right approach and mental toughness can compete with anyone on any given day. That's both exciting for the sport and terrifying for teams with championship expectations. The question coming out of this game wasn't just whether Slovenia could recover, it was whether they could learn from this experience and use it as motivation for future tournaments. Sometimes, the most painful losses become the foundation for future success, but only if teams are willing to honestly assess what went wrong and make the necessary changes. For Luka, this game served as a harsh reminder that international basketball requires a different kind of leadership. In the NBA, he can afford to let his emotions run high because his team has systems and veterans to keep things stable. Playing for Slovenia, he needs to be not just the best player, but also the emotional anchor for his teammates. Slovenia's coaching staff also faced serious questions after this performance. How do you manage a superstar player who's clearly frustrated? How do you maintain team chemistry when your best player is having public arguments with officials? How do you adjust your game plan when the opposition is successfully baiting your star into emotional reactions? Slovenia's coaching staff also faced serious questions after this performance. How do you manage a superstar player who's clearly frustrated? How do you maintain team chemistry when your best player is having public arguments with officials? How do you adjust your game plan when the opposition is successfully baiting your star into emotional reactions? These aren't easy questions to answer, especially in the middle of a high-pressure tournament, but they're questions that championship teams figure out how to address. And Slovenia's inability to do so in this game exposed a significant area for improvement. What Poland accomplished in this game goes far beyond just winning a basketball game. They showed the entire basketball world that reputation alone doesn't win championships. They demonstrated that heart, preparation, and mental toughness can overcome talent gaps that look insurmountable on paper. For Slovenia and Luka Doncic, this loss became a wake-up call about what it really takes to succeed at the international level. It's not enough to have the best individual player if you can't function as a cohesive unit when adversity strikes. And for basketball fans everywhere, this game served as a beautiful reminder of why we love this sport. On any given night, in any gym, magic can happen. David can still beat Goliath. Underdogs can still shock the world. The Poland-Slovenia game teaches us something profound about sports and life. Success isn't just about having the most talent in the room. It's about how you handle pressure, how you respond to adversity, and how you perform when everything seems to be going wrong. Poland understood that basketball, especially at the international level, is as much a mental game as it is a physical one. They knew they couldn't out-talent Slovenia, so they found another way to win. They played with the kind of fearless intensity that can only come from having nothing to lose and everything to gain. Slovenia learned the hard way that talent without mental toughness is like having a Ferrari with flat tires. It looks impressive, but it's not going to get you where you want to go. This game also signals something important about the evolution of international basketball. The gap between traditional powers and emerging nations continues to shrink. Teams like Poland are no longer content to just participate. They're coming to compete, and they're not intimidated by big names or past accomplishments. For players like Luka Doncic, this represents both a challenge and an opportunity. The challenge is that every game, every possession, every moment is going to be a battle. The opportunity is that overcoming these challenges is what transforms good players into legends. If this breakdown of one of Eurobasket's most shocking upsets got your basketball blood pumping, then you're going to absolutely love what I have coming up next on the channel. I'm diving deep into the latest NBA news that's got the entire basketball world buzzing. And trust me, you don't want to miss these developments that could completely reshape the league landscape. We're talking about potential trades that could create new super teams, emerging rookies who are already making veteran players nervous, and behind-the-scenes drama that makes the best reality TV look boring. Plus, I'll be breaking down how international tournament performances, like what we just discussed, are influencing NBA team strategies and draft preparations. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because the NBA never sleeps, and neither does the content on this channel. The basketball world moves fast, and I'm here to make sure you never miss a beat. Your next basketball obsession is just one click away. See you in the next video, where we're uncovering the stories that everyone will be talking about tomorrow.